there was something that I was working with on my intro is about the police and what, with George Floyd and what went down there. And, and this is something I'm working on an episode about the potential of labor. And you think about that, the police department, the police training, the software that's used for the police training department. And anybody that is out there that hears this, I would love to talk to a police department that is utilizing technology that's bettering their relationships between their police officers and the communities. And then let's find out what's working and then spread that around. Because if a police department is acquiring communication technology and training technology, where are they getting it from? Are the police officers part of the process of identifying and using this technology? Or is it coming from the union? Or is it coming from an administrative council? And then, or should it come from the community? Should the community stakeholders that are being, are interacting with the police, shouldn't they be the ones to help build or identify the technology that's going to help their police officers relate to and align with the interest of the community more effectively? So whenever they're coming up with a situation where somebody walks away, that they have a better understanding. And, are the police trained daily? I mean, all day long on the fact of these different situations per community that are happening. And see, that's the centralization versus the decentralization. Is if this software is acquired and the software is only speaking to the interests of the providers, then what do you think we're going to get from it when it's actually deployed? So are we going to get it? And what happens when the police aren't aligned with the communities? What's going to happen? It's going to create more noise. And then the police officers are going to be seen and they're going to be painted as all bad, and which is happening, which I fundamentally don't believe in. Are there bad elements? Absolutely. But I think it's bad systems. I think it's bad training that could be used to be able to make a more of an effective relationship between the people of the communities and the police officers themselves, not the police chiefs and not the heads of the departments. I'm talking about the police officers. What kind of stake? They're the freaking stakeholders. They're the one putting themselves out on the line. And the people that are on the streets are the ones that are, when they go out and buy bread, that they're putting themselves on the line. So what kind of voice do they have in building the technology that is going to serve both of them? And that's where I think that we're truly disconnected. We're lost in this.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've got a good friend who's, I'm not going to reveal any personal information about him, but police officer, one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. And he's leaving the force. I mean, we're talking about a person who's was a Marine, did multiple tours in Iraq, was in Fallujah. His first son was born while he was in Fallujah. He's come back, worked hard as a beat cop. Outstanding human being. Made detective. Worked as a detective in Baton Rouge, which is one of the worst places you would ever want to. Just some of the things you're going to see there are just awful. I mean, murder after murder after murder. It's really bad. Has since moved out of Louisiana. Was detective in another smaller department. Eventually got another promotion to where he was actually at a school. And, teaching kids and just kind of being like a good, positive police presence at the school. And I mean, literally talked to him yesterday and he's like, I'm out.
Jesus.
I'm out. So, and what I'm trying to get at is he is outstanding. Every police officer should be like he is. And he should be somebody who gets to have a say in the training. And
yep.
He's put the work in. I agree that the community should have something to say, but also they need to educate each other. It takes both.
Yeah. They're stakeholders. It's just kind of shareholder versus stakeholder. The big. It needs to come from deep within. And these police officers and these communities of individuals and I'm not talking about getting around and singing Kumbaya. I'm talking about, so what's going on in the streets and what can we do? I mean, even the community side, the police officers, what can we do for you to realize what we're going through? Because I'm not black, so I have no idea what it's like to drive a street and be pulled over for no reason. I don't know. This whole thing of blaming the victim and the victim blaming the other side is that it's about the fact of more understanding of what's going on. Now, again, not to sing kumbaya, but to deal with the hard realities of life and use these tools to make us have a better alignment with each other and better understanding, so that we're not fuller just from the technology, so that we're fuller, when that police officer meets that community member, and they have more of a respect of what that person's gone through, and for the community member to have more respect for what the police officer has to go through. Is our technology playing on that, or is it playing on the noise? Is it really truly allowing us to get a better understanding? And that's my thing. That's what the emergence is what resides deep within us. That blue blanket that I had, that I was raised with my mother, that the words that were used, the experiences I've had, and if I've been called out because of the color of my skin or anything else. I mean, I'm short, so you know how many short jokes I've had in my life. Now, it's absolutely nowhere close to what people of color go through. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that in parts in my brain when pretty much every day of my life I've had some, whether people are just being cool and funny, but those little things. And so those little things come inside your psyche and they build that nurture part of who you are. And then you have your environment. And so where you live, and if you're living in the ghetto, and if you're living in the ghetto and you have wonderful parents that raise you and then do the best to be able to protect you, versus you're living in the mansion in Beverly Hills and your parents are terrible. I mean, these nuances are difficult. But the technology does not play to the nuances. They don't play to the nature and nurture. It's just like this binary, opaque, let's just get you to believe that everything is going to be great so you can spend more money to get there. Buy more self-help books, or, that's another thing about LinkedIn. I said this to a guy a while ago. It's like, LinkedIn's like one big self-help book. And I'm actually, after Microsoft bought it, I'm just let down by it, because they used to have some really great groups in there. And it's just, and I love self-help. There's no problem with that. But when you use that as an escape, it's like the self-help for escape. It's like, no, there's things inside of us. Let's build these tools to help mine our own better reality so that we can impart that with other people in our communities, so we can help build them up. Why do we want to take people down? Let's build, but for me to bring somebody else up, I need to be up myself. So I just think, and this is, we talked about this before, about Word documents, spreadsheets, and our websites. They're silos. They're just we should really build tools that are more open, on the fact of it's an open protocol that you're able to open source, like the thing that I'd mentioned on one of my episodes, the fact that my tweet history. If I'm not happy with Twitter's algorithm and I'm not happy with what Twitter is doing, I should be able to take my entire history of Twitter and move it into another domain. And our information should be built to where it's exportable, and and all my instances of engagement, those are mine. Those are my experiences on Twitter. Right now they are, because I agree to their freaking 40-page terms of service. But in the future, for us to be able to explore our potential on this planet, we need to have better tools that allow us to be able to explore ourselves, so that we can then explore others, so that we can work better together. And not as some utopian dream, but some pragmatic reality of just what's the matter with better. I had a guy that I was on with a social network, and he was saying he had a problem with better because it leads to people feeling that they are not good. And it's like, no, if we can at least serve the possibility of better, then we are screwed. It doesn't have to be best or perfect, just better. What's the matter with, trying to be better for our community and ourselves, and not being perfect. And then whenever we make mistakes, we learn from them, like the police officers, well, let's really look at what happened with this, and then let's learn how ourselves and systems can help us learn from it and be better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, just on that last bit there, like, people have to stop being so sensitive. Like, we're not going to make any progress if I'm not saying that we need to be insensitive, but there's no possible way. Like, part of the way that we learn is through tough experience and finding humor in experience. Like, that's how we share information. It's a way we share information. It's a way we build connections. And if you can't say anything, and you can't, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I'm really,
it's an incredibly important one. Yeah.
I'm really concerned that our ability to even to build the connections that we need to build are stifled by, just a very, I'll just say it's a very strong sensitivity to anything that goes against any type of message that's being pushed. I'm not going to point out individual things.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, in general, if an agenda comes into play and it's like, this is the way you're either going to believe this or you're not going to believe it, or you're going to do this or you're not going to do it. It's really hard for there to be anything other than two opinions on that particular issue. And the technology that we need to build, or the technology that we need to have, is the one where, let's go back to the example of the police officer and the person in the community. It needs to be the one that finds the particular police officer and the particular community member that do have something that they can build upon.
Yes.
And then once those two make that connection, and that person says, oh, this police officer is not bad, this is actually a really good guy, and the police officer does the same. I really like this guy. This is somebody I would hang out with outside of work. Whatever their connection might be.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the color of their skin or anything else.
Nope. It's a human connection that gets made. Maybe they have different opinions on a million different topics, but for whatever that one thing that we're able to identify quickly.
Yep.
And that will spread through the community, because from that point, especially with a good piece of technology that makes it easy and actually promotes this type of behavior, now you're quickly building good relationships in any community. I mean, it could be a Black community, could be a poor white community, could be a upper class community.
Absolutely.
They all need good relationships with the police force. A good line of communication would do things that would prevent people from doing things that put people like police officers who are out risking their lives, and they're already on guard just because you have to be. I mean, if you knew that at any given time your ticket gets punched, you're going to be on guard. You're going to be a little more aggressive. And I mean, absolutely, they need better training. But really, it starts from good connections with people in the community, so they know that they can trust, and that will weed out the bad police officers right away, right?
Yep.
Because it'll get back once there's a friendship there, and somebody says, hey, I'm just going to let you know, police officer A, that police officer B is really coming around here doing some shady stuff. it's being overly aggressive, blah, blah, blah. That makes it something that at that point, that police officer A has the ability to do what he knows he needs to do and go talk to somebody higher up about police officer B.
Yeah, and there could be something. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted to talk to you, because I knew you were going to surface up some things I didn't think of. And it's that individual. So when you talk about, the sensitivities on some of these other things. So let's just use that: a white police officer and a black community member, and they find a really strong connection on a couple of things, and all the other things they don't agree with. They might not agree on politics. They might not know, the sensitivities on some of these other things are going to be outweighed by the strength of their connection. And as they continue, they might find more things that they actually have a common interest in, as opposed to focusing. And, there's things about sensitivity of calling a black person the N-word is just, there's just obviously that just boom. We're not talking about that type of sensitivity. We're talking about the nuances of people taking these things and focusing on it to where it's actually getting in the way of digging in and finding those common ground. The Democrat versus the Republican, and the liberals versus the conservatives. Like, there's so many. I've talked to people to where they think that conservatives are just the bane of all existence. Like, I grew up with conservatives. I'm not conservative, but my family, a lot of them, and friends are conservatives. Like, and that same thing that the conservatives will say the liberals are the bane of all existence. I know liberals. Come on, people. It's ridiculous is what it is. We're all human beings. We've got human traits inside of us. That's why I want to talk to a Marxist. Now, I don't want to talk to I will be honest with you. I'm not going to have a Hitler carrying card member on the show. I'm just not going to do that. That's my prerogative. But I'll talk to any conservative if they're going to talk about not harming somebody, just like if it's a Marxist that wants to have bloody revolution, there's not going to be any common ground there. But if I'm going to talk about a Marxist about their ideas of empowering labor, hell yeah, I'm going to talk to them. Why wouldn't I? And if I could talk to a conservative about their argument for the ideas of self-empowerment and things like that, hell yeah. So it's digging deep inside and finding those common traits, like your brother found with your interest in art, that's able to translate back to him to validate some things that maybe he's good at, maybe that he can see. Because now maybe that community member with the police is going to see the police a little bit differently, because that one police officer is acting outside of what the centralized connection has told him what a police officer is. You know what I mean? It's
absolutely
this cake that we're all supposed to eat, that Marie Antoinette, told the people that they should eat when they're starving. It's really, that's where I'm getting to, where this centralized connection is let them eat cake. Seriously, we should be able to be more nuanced in that. But the thing is, we're not going to be able to be more nuanced unless we build these tools and we find the people and find the funding to build these tools. And maybe, one of my arguments of episode I'm working on, the potential of labor, is I believe we should bring in grants. And, if you're a company utilizing this technology to empower labor, to be able to help discover labor that's more in line with employers, then I think you should get a tax break. I think you should get a grant from, I'll pay my taxes to do that. That should be a part of my taxes, to be able to help people align their labor more effectively from what they have, their capabilities that reside with them. And then what are the needs that reside deep within the employer? Not employers. I'm not saying that employers are bad and labor are good. What I'm saying is that lack of connection, that alignment between the two. And I think that government can serve a role by not building the technology, but helping provide possibly subsidies or tax breaks. And, maybe do away with all the generic tax breaks where, Amazon doesn't pay any federal tax. And but that's a bigger my thing. And my thing is that on capitalism, I really have more of a flank attack to where you go into the inside and you're not destroying anybody, because I don't want to overthrow capitalism. I just want to make it more effective to where the true ideas behind Adam Smith's and the Enlightenment thinkers 200-300 years ago, what their true intent was. It was not this. I'm telling you that. It was not shareholder primacy. That was not his intent, Adam Smith intent. And it's just been bastardized. But what am I going to do? Say overthrow these, capitalist pigs? No, not at all. Is that let's build technology to dig deep inside these operations to help them find value of their labor. I don't think they're actually necessarily pushing down on labor. It's just the way that the system is, that it's based on profit. But maybe if you start to allow labor to kind of breathe inside these organizations, and people breathe outside of big organizations where they find things like your brother can find things that really, validate him that he doesn't work for a big corporation or a big company. Maybe he's discovering art. But, for us to be more resonant with ourselves and allow the government and business enterprises to help fund these things or give breaks towards it, to help it grow. I think that's the role of them, not to build it, but to help promote it.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I'm at a point to where I just feel like government in general is failing, at least in our country, just on all fronts. I just feel like the ball is just being dropped.
Yep.
And that in itself, I see technological solutions that should be put in place for accountability, if for nothing else. And, I think you and I both know that the powers that be don't want to have these things in place. And if they did,
it'd already be in place.
They'd already be in place. So that's the fight that we're fighting. And it's a good fight, and it's one that needs to be fought. But
I know,
it's a hard one.
It seems, and that's where I got from Mark Nadal. I gave him my ideas on the marginalized consumer, and he's like, I just don't see you changing that. And I agree with that. And I've actually been facing that on all my communities that I've been engaging with. But I figure I have I'm 57, so I've got a good 20 years, 25 years of I am going to fight for this. And I think the best fight is, maybe the government's not going to fund these things right away, but what if we find ways to just build these little experiments, and then you're able to show, because we can't just build these things. We've got to show how they're resonating within communities, how they're being effective, and that feedback loop, and cybernetics is how important feedback is in building proper systems. Is that if we're not able to monitor the progress of these applications, then it's not going to get any type of traction. But if say money was raised on some of these ideas, and then it was able to show how these communities, maybe it's a police force, maybe it's an open source training solution for one police force in Mesa, Arizona. And you're able to then have metrics and reporting on the back end over the last year. And that was trialed, and maybe it was a $500,000 fund that was able to be raised somehow. And this technology was completely open sourced and was not built from within. It was not built for profit. Now, the police force would license it, but the technology itself would have a fabric of open source, developers that are able to then allow it to grow as more of an ecosystem outside only the principles of business. And then you put in metrics and you put in reporting into that to show, tap into the community through AI, what's going on in the community and the progress. And you show that how these things have either been working or not. And if it's not working, then you improve it again. And, there's a lady I follow. Her name is Vivian Ming, Ming, and she has Sokos Labs. I talk about her in almost every episode. I've wanted to get on. I don't know if she'll ever get on, but I'm going to continue to talk about her. I just love her thoughts, because she builds artificial intelligence, which she called augmented intelligence, which is important because, and she builds these technologies to help. She built something called Guild, where they were able to then more effectively align people looking for work with employers based off of predictive behaviors of things they've contributed to. And, if we were able to build these technologies that had a better understanding. And then if you can build it to understand, you can also build it to have a ability of how it's doing and report back in the community. And that's really the emergence right there. That's the plan of how I want to travel the world in the future and find these things and fight for them. And one of them might be a real small little thing. Could be a guy freaking in his basement in his underwear building something, and I find it and it's like them. And then there's a provider over here that can use the dude that just built it in his underwear. Once you try it, it's like, okay, I'll try it. And then reporting and it works. And, it's those small things. It's not going to be me going to Microsoft and trying to convince Microsoft to build something. That's going to be impossible. But if Microsoft comes across finding things that are actually working to improve their customer, relations and dealing with their customer support, and they find it, and it's an outsourced solution that is organically able to grow from the community, they can license. Yeah, maybe that'll take 10 years, but that's the idea of the emergence, to really dig deep, find these technologies that reside inside ourselves and our communities, and to grow them outside of only the profit model. That's where I think it's called what WTF happened in the 1970s.com. There's all this reporting of what's happened. Literally, that is the website, WTF. So what the fuck happened in the 1970s.com. And it will show you all this reporting of what's happened since the 70s on the separation of the wealth gap. And it's basically, this whole shareholder primacy deal where it's just driving for profits as opposed to the quality of the experience. And my thing is, I think we're going to continue to see that chart continue to grow, climb and climb and climb. And what happens when we're separated, when this wealth gap increases? There's more dissonance, there's more anger. And then when you've got a centralized information connection that's playing off of those behaviors and all the problems, and you should be upset and you should be pissed and one side or the other, then we got to break that chain. I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting for that. And, I don't have much traction yet, but I've got some traction. So I'm going to put on snowshoes and freaking get to work.
Well, Paul, I am very excited, to be honest, that you've got your podcast launched and you're out here doing this. Somebody's got to do it. I know there's some other folks out and about, and just making an awareness and putting a spark in the minds of other, people who are brilliant people who are just sitting around, who haven't been able to even have the time to start to ponder on these types of things. Just getting the information out there is the start. Just throwing some ideas out, and it's just planting seeds, and they will grow.
Yeah, and when I look at my analytics on my podcast, I see I've got a little bit of a community growing in India, believe it or not. Proportionate to the United States, it's it's not as big, but it's more than all the other countries. So, to the audience out there, anybody that knows anyone that could contribute to some of these ideas, that's innovating, that's anything, I'll talk to anybody. I really will. And you share resources with me of interesting things that are going on, I will share it. And by the way, with you, I'm going to share your drug money resources and things like that, because I want people to discover your music. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Yep. So, I really appreciate
that. Thank you so much.
Yep. So really, this is what it's all about, is really just, getting in, digging deep, just really digging for it. And that's the kind of the metaphor I use is a shovel. We all need better shovels for us to be able to dig for the truth and dig for our own better realities. And I don't want to buy the shovel from Walmart. I want to be a part of the one to make it myself, and my community can help me make it. And that's ultimately where we need to be, in my opinion. I mean, I may be wrong, but it's taken me a long time to actually, because back in the day, I didn't have the clarity of what this actually was. And that's what I think led to the problems with Quired, is I was just chasing something. And finally, Sharon got me into the point of meditating and really because I'd always tell her, it's like, I know I'm going to do something, but I just don't know what it is. And she goes, you need to meditate and find the flow and let it take you there. And I thought it was nonsense. And then it just, it took me a year or two, and then it just came with the Emergence. I found that book in a bookstore and just happened across it, and was like, damn. So, that's what I'm fighting for. I finally found it. So, let's just keep on moving it forward. And, you discover anything else on your side that's things interesting, and we'll work on our word explorer thing. Like I told the people in Virginia that I need to just basically launch this and find people that are interested in these things. And Lord knows, maybe we'll build something eventually together.
Yeah, absolutely. I will share anything I find. We'll keep working on things. I'm really excited for you. I know you've been searching for this for a long time, and so far I think it's going really well. So Just keep pushing, keep fighting for it, and we'll see what comes to the surface.
Yep, that's it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the Emergence, and always love talking to you. It's always a joy to be able to talk to you, and I'm going to physically see you. We've been promising that for a while, so it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon.
All right, Paul, that goes both ways, and I would definitely love to see you soon. So let's talk sometime soon and figure out when we can do that.
All right, man. Well, thanks again, and I'll just talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.